Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Crutchfield Park. It is beautiful. It is sunny outside, not like that Front Royal game with some clouds. We should be able to get some Tom Sox baseball in today. I'm Eric Fenstermaker, joined alongside by Dylan Castaigne. Dylan, how are you?
I'm doing great today. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Of course. It is always great when you get to talk about Tom Sox baseball. The team finally getting back in action. It's been a while since we've seen a home game, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a while. Obviously, we're excited for the Front Royal game on Sunday against the Cardinals. Doubleheader canceled, but beautiful day for baseball. Shouldn't be any rain in the forecast, so I'm looking forward to it.
Now, the Charlottesville Tom Sox are currently sitting at 7-1. They're on a 6-game win streak, 31 games left after today. Just 15 more at home. It feels like a very quickly dwindling number, but the Tom Sox have gotten out to a great start this season. What do you think the main reason for their success has been?
I think it's been the red-hot hitting. They started off a little slow at the beginning of the season, but recently they've been on fire. The last 4 games, they've scored 6 or more runs in each of them. The last 2 games, they've scored 9 runs each game. The pitching's been a little bit streaky, and the hitting has been streaky too, but overall, the offense is definitely what's keeping this boat afloat for now.
Definitely, and we take on the Waynesboro Generals tonight, first pitch at 7 p.m., but before we talk about tonight's game, let's jump back to a couple of the games that we saw before. Obviously, I mentioned the Front Royal Cardinals did not get to take on the Tom Sox here at Crutchfield Park because the game was rained out. It will be rescheduled on July 19th at 4 p.m. Now, with the Tom Sox having their big streak, could it actually be a bad thing for them they didn't get to play this game because you were expecting to have this long stretch of games and you were expecting to have this grueling schedule. You had a day off where things were kind of weird and it kind of disrupted your mojo. Do you think it could actually be a negative thing for the Tom Sox?
I think just how red hot they've been winning their last 6 games in a row, anything that disrupts that can hurt the team, right? So obviously, not being able to play on Sunday could be a detriment to the season, but they still have this big stretch ahead of them. They got 9 games in the next 9 days, not including tonight. So they have every opportunity to continue this win streak, push it to maybe 7, 8, 9. And if they get on, this could really be a really make or break point in the season for them. If they continue this hot streak over these 9 games, could easily put them ahead for the rest of the season. But if they start to struggle here, that could really, dip them in the standings a little bit.
Now, Dylan, you were the man with the memes on Monday when we took on the Stanton Braves. The Tom Sox, 9-2 victory there. What did you see in that match? Because it was kind of weird. The Tom Sox jump out to a lot of runs in the first inning, then a lot of runs late in the 9th inning, 13 strikeouts, but also a decent amount of walks too, some great batting, but also some struggling performances. Trevor Candelaria hits a home run, the second of the year for the Tom Sox at that point. What did you really see in this matchup for the Tom Sox?
I think this is when I mentioned earlier the streaky hitting. This was the epitome of it, right? They got off to a great start in the first inning, scoring 5 runs, and then right in the bottom half of the inning gave up 2, right? So the pitching staff, as we mentioned, has been a little streaky. A lot of walks given up. I think in 3 of their last 4 games, they've given up 7 or more, which you just can't do. Luckily, their offense has been able to back them up there, which has been really great. But yeah, that game was one of the weirdest I've seen in a long time because they scored 5 runs in the first inning, and then they had 19 straight batters retired, which is not something you see in a game where you score 9 runs, right? So obviously they were able to bring it back in the 9th inning and win the game eventually 9-2, but you want to see more consistency than that, right? You don't want to see 9 runs being scored just over 2 innings. You want to spread that out a little bit, especially when your pitching can be a little inconsistent. So that's something I want to see moving forward. Starting with tonight in Waynesboro, I want to see a lot more consistency from this Tom Sox offense.
Consistency is something the Tom Sox definitely need when it comes to this roster. But from that game, Jacob Haney, 6 strikeouts in 4 innings pitched, 13 total strikeouts for the Tom Sox. That's a great thing for them to see. They're registering a lot of strikeouts. Has been something that they've really worked on with their pitching staff, really working on that consistency and that control with their pitching. Cole Foster and Trevor Candelaria each had 3 RBIs, 6 of the team 7 RBIs for the Tom Sox. Trevor Candelaria, like I mentioned, had a home run in this game. Now we jump to yesterday's game. The Tom Sox travel to Covington and take on the Lumberjacks in a key divisional game. They win this game 9-7. Runs were only scored in the 1st, 5th, and 8th inning. So it's weird when you see 16 runs scored, yet only scored over 3 innings. No other inning registered a run. Dylan, we talk about this streakiness, this kind of inconsistency. Is this just another example of that?
Yeah, no, last night was definitely another example. Like you mentioned, they scored 16 runs in 2 games, but only over 5 innings, right? And obviously, it's any time you can score that many runs, it's a great thing. Give your pitching staff some room to work with, especially when they're struggling. But that's not something you want to continue over the course of the season. So that streakiness that we've mentioned so many times already, you got to find a way to fix that. Hopefully, they have a lot of opportunities in the next 9 days. They have 9 games where they can work out these kinks and hopefully get back and right the ship before the down stretch of the season.
Now, one of the things the Tom Sox really love to do is take away other teams' advantages. We saw that they took away Kent Rooklyn earlier in the season. In this game here, Nathan Becker, the best batter for Covington, had just 1 hit in 5 at-bats. The Tom Sox love to take away opponents' strengths, and they're going to need to do so tonight against the Waynesboro Generals. Now, the Waynesboro Generals are currently sitting at 3-6. They won their last game for a streak of just 1 win. But they're a very weird team for the Tom Sox to play because this is their only matchup against them so far. They play them once in the month of June and 6 times in July of their 7 matchups this season. Dylan, how important is it, especially at home, especially in front of this home crowd, to really set that tone early on in a series against a team you're going to see quite frequently?
Yeah, absolutely. I think tonight will be absolutely huge. The Tom Sox are going to have every advantage pretty much going for them, right? We're going to have a giant crowd here tonight. We have Chris Long throwing out the first pitch, which I think is going to draw out a lot of fans to Crutchfield Park. You're coming off of 2 great road victories. You're finally back in Crutchfield. You didn't get to play the doubleheader, so once again feeling that antsiness. So they have everything going for them. They're hot on they're hot at the batter's box. So they just really need to get off to this great start because, like you said, we're going to see him 7 times, but there's 2-3 weeks before we get to see him again. So we'll really set the tone tonight, get that started, and then hopefully follow up next month.
Now, like you mentioned, Chris Long will be throwing out the first pitch tonight. Huge for the UVA community. We all know what kind of ties he has with the area and how he'll really bring out the fans and be passionate. But when you talk about the great play from the Tom Sox, it starts with Mackenzie Pate, right? He's been absolutely on fire. He's batting .368 right now, 7 hits and 6 stolen bases, really doing it all for the Tom Sox. We've seen different players step up. Early on in the season was Pierce Bennett. We saw Alex Urban step up. Ryan Dials had a couple huge games. Now Mackenzie Pate has really carried that mantle for a while now. What does it mean when you can have multiple players step up on any given night and really just excel?
Yeah, and like I said, we've said 1,000 times already, streakiness, right? But if you have 4 guys that, any night could be the one that pops off and has 2-3 hits, a couple RBIs, that's huge for the team, right? And then, obviously, like we said, guys have been a little, have hot game, cold game. But once you get these guys connecting on the same time, at the same time, who knows what this offense can do, right? And like you said, Pierce Bennett was really hot at the start of the season, then had a little bit of a cold stretch, but he's starting to work out of it. He was 1 hit in his last 19 at-bats going into last night, but last night had a great game, hit his first home run of the season, 2 for 3 with 2 runs scored, so hopefully he's starting to turn the corner there. And as this offense heats up and more players start to get on the same level at the same time, this offense could be really dangerous.
Now, this will be a great game for the Tom Sox to try to get back to their hitting ways and kind of eliminate some of that streakiness. The Generals are one of the worst pitching staffs in the VBL, whereas the Tom Sox are one of the best. When you look at the stats, they're just above Harrisonburg for some of the best in the league, but Harrisonburg has also played a ton less games than the Tom Sox, so when you average it out, I believe the Tom Sox would be the best pitching team in the league. And we've seen a very unique strategy with the Tom Sox. You're not letting your aces kind of go the entire length of the game. You're seeing this very strategic, maybe 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 innings pitch type strategy. How do you think this impacts the overall play of the game? Because a lot of teams are letting their guys go, right? They're letting them go 5-6 innings, see what they can get out of them. The Tom Sox are kind of going with this, platoon strategy where everybody's kind of getting some action. How does this ultimately impact the game?
I think it's great. Personally, I think it's a great strategy. If someone's having a good game, you obviously want to keep them in as far as you can go. But a lot of times what happens when you use this, pitch them as far as they can, is they have that one inning where they just fall off, give up a couple runs, and then you maybe lose the game. And at the worst, you can make them lose their confidence, right? But if you have a guy who's only throwing 2-3 innings a game, has a great outing, he builds up that confidence. And like I said, having a high-powered offense just boosts that up even more, right? If you know that you're going to be able to score, or your offense is going to score you 3, 4, 5 runs a night, you can maybe, work more on some finesse stuff instead of just trying to overpower people because you have this lead that you're built up. So I think the platoon strategy, while a little unconventional, maybe we'll see it change a little bit as the season goes on, but I'm personally a big fan of it.
And when you talk about these dynamic batters, you have to really watch out for Waynesboro. Although the Tom Sox have been red hot, Waynesboro has also been even better with their batters. They currently have 3 batters batting over 400 or better, including Will Prater leading the team with a batting average of .429. How do you take away these other teams' successful and really talented players? We saw it with Kent Rooklyn. We saw it with Nathan Becker early on in the season. How do you think the Tom Sox can be able to go out and say, okay, these are the guys who are doing well. We need to stop them and mitigate them so we can play our game plan?
Yeah, obviously, I think that starts with the pitching staff, right? As we said, they're one of the best, counting Harrisonburg, but they haven't played as many games. But that starts at the top with the pitcher, right? If he can get out there, get a consistent 2-3 innings, and then the relief staff comes and relieves him, does a good outing. But once again, that goes back to the hitting, right? If you can get on the board, like you said, Waynesboro does not have a great pitching staff. So if we can get on them early, score, maybe put up another 4 or 5 runs in the first couple of innings, that pitching staff can cool off, relax a little bit, because Waynesboro could have a great night at the batter's box, but if we have an even better night, obviously that neutralizes the effect a little bit.
Definitely, like you mentioned, put that pressure on the other team's pitching staff first. Get out, register some runs, give your pitcher some insurance. It just makes things easier, right? It gives you the flow. If your pitcher doesn't have to go out and win the game for you, I think it just makes it a lot easier taking that pressure off of them. But it'll be really interesting to see, like I mentioned, we play Waynesboro 7 times this season, just once this month, 6 next month, so really key to kind of set that tone early on. But looking ahead at the rest of the schedule, because the Tom Sox, like we mentioned, do have kind of a daunting schedule left. 9 games in 9 days after today, and of the 9 games, 6 are against either Stanton or Covington. Dylan, we've talked about it before, but how important and how honestly tough is it to play a team multiple times in the season and still emerge victorious? There's this chip on other teams' shoulders now, like Stanton, like Covington, saying we've lost the Tom Sox every single time. It almost puts a lot more pressure on the Tom Sox, no?
I would agree to an extent. Like, yes, the team they want to, extend this undefeated streak, but even if you're 5-1 against Covington or 5-1 against the Braves, that's still a great record in your own division, right? So even if they're not winning every single game, which I do believe there is some pressure there to try and keep these wins up, and if you're undefeated against a team, you obviously want to keep that going. But if you drop 1 or 2, it's okay because you've built this 3-game pad where it's okay. Even if we lose 1 or 2 games in the next series, in the next few weeks, we still won the first 3, won the first 4, so we know that at the end of the season, we're still going to end up on top of them.
Right, and like you mentioned, just making sure that, especially these divisional opponents that you're going to see quite frequently, of the 42 games, 30 are against divisional opponents. Of those teams, you really have to set that tone, establish that edge, and make sure that they know, hey, we're coming, and we're coming every single night. But like we mentioned, no rest for the weary for the Tom Sox, no days off until June 23rd. But I don't know about you, going back to that Front Royal game, which was never even played, it was really cool to see the fan base hang and stick around, right? They were bringing tents. People were dancing in the rain, getting into it, even though it was just for like an inning and a half that we actually got to see action. People were staying. People were waiting in the rain to see if the Tom Sox would come back to play. What does it mean when your fan base is waiting, willing to get wet and wait to see the team not even play? How cool is it to see fans that really love the team this much, that they support them that much?
Yeah, I mean, working as a media member, I love it. And then on the players on the field, most of them, this is their first time inside of Crutchfield Park, and just seeing the level of commitment from these fans is immeasurable, right? And obviously, Sunday night, we didn't even get to play like you mentioned, and still fans were sticking around for the next half hour waiting to see maybe we'd get to see some baseball. Now imagine what's going to happen tonight. Beautiful day, Chris Long in the park on a 6-game win streak. It's going to be amazing. And, as a player, you just feed off that energy, right? You're riding hot. A lot of these batters have been doing really well recently. And the level inside of Crutchfield Park tonight is just going to be immeasurable, and they're just going to feed off. It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to see what happens.
Now, hopefully, the pitching staff will do really well. Chris Long will also be looking to rebound from his pitching. The last time he threw a first pitch, the result was not as desirable as he wants. So we'll see what Chris Long is doing. Dylan, I have to ask, if you were throwing out a first pitch at a ballpark and you had the crowd watching you, the fans supporting you, what's your go-to pitch here? What do you throw it? I mean, because you could go straight heat right down the middle. You could throw a curve. You could try to get a little fancy with some finesse. If you're on the mound tonight and you're Chris Long and you're going to throw a pitch, what would you be throwing?
If I'm Chris Long, you definitely got to redeem yourself after the few years ago in St. Louis. But I think you got to go straight heat. He's a big man, played a lot of years in the NFL on the defensive line. You got to go straight heat. The fans are not going to come and want to watch you, throw lollygag a curveball in there or anything like that. So I think you're going straight down the middle. Hopefully, whoever's catching him puts up a good, gives him a good a target to work with. And, I think the fans will go electric if he throws a great pitch. It may be even better if he doesn't, because then, oh, great, now we have it on film. But hopefully for everyone's sake, and especially Chris Long's, he throws a gem tonight.
Now, Chris Long will be looking to have a great performance on the mound tonight, but the Tom Sox definitely need to keep up their A game. They are 7-1. They're doing really, really well, but there's a team up north that's also doing really well, Strasburg. They are currently 9-1 as well. So with the Tom Sox needing to establish their key divisional races against teams like Covington, Stanton, Harrisonburg, Waynesboro, you also do have to kind of keep an eye on that, right? Because there are teams that are doing as well. So if you're the Tom Sox, how do you balance that we're doing well in our division, but we still need to keep an eye on other teams that are succeeding as well?
Yeah, of course. I think what's really important is not to get too far ahead of yourself. Like, if you're worrying about the game against against Strasburg on the 27th, you're not going to be worrying about this team's head. These teams we're facing are not a joke. Like we said, Waynesboro has been red hot at the batter's box, so you can't just walk in and expect to win the game easily. So I think you do have to keep an eye on the standings, keep an eye on their key hitters, key pitchers, how they're doing. But the Tom Sox have done really well this season against everyone so far, pretty much. They're only lost against Woodstock in the doubleheader early in the season. But, when they first faced the Stanton Braves, I think at that point they were 4-0, 5-0. So they've done well so far against teams that are pretty high up in their division. So obviously you have to look forward and look, Strasburg is the day on the schedule that they're circling right now, but you can't take these teams before them as a joke. You still have to try your best going into it.
Now, it is a beautifully sunny day at Crutchfield Park. Not too hot, not too cold. You can see a slight breeze out there, but there's going to be a lot of fans out there waiting to see Chris Long throw that first pitch in the bleachers around us and in the field out there. It should be an absolutely great day for Tom Sox baseball. First pitch tonight against the Waynesboro Generals will be at 7 p.m. The center at Belvedere is Senior Living Center. They will be doing the national anthem today. I heard there's going to be a keyboard tonight.
Oh, very
So
excited
it's
for
going
that.
to be a lot of excitement and a lot of energy at Crutchfield Park. And the Tom Sox need it, right? They've gotten out to a great start. They've done some really great things on the mound and in the batter's box. It should be a great day for Tom Sox baseball. Like I mentioned, first pitch day at 7 p.m. Dylan, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric.
Now, you can come out and see the Tom Sox all season long for free thanks to Carter Bank and Trust. Come out, join the fans, dance with Louie, get involved, come out. It's just an absolutely great time. Seats in the bleachers, seats on the hill, just an absolutely great environment, right?
Great environment here at Crutchfield Park.
It's just absolutely amazing. But for David Argo, for Dylan Castaigne, for Eric Fenstermaker, thank you so much for listening. Have a great day, and I hope to see you at the ballpark tonight.